On Mother's Day, we've often tried to have a woman who's a woman of faith, and a woman who's making who's living out that faith in a way that is going to be an encouragement to all of us. And so today we have Gubby Ayida, and it's just such a joy to have her and a privilege to have her with us. And first came across the Ayida family, so she's here with her husband Chris. Welcome to both of you this morning. And over the years, we knew Gubby's mum, and obviously Alero, who's a valued part of the church, and her family as well. It's been amazing to see. Gubby's a world-renowned obstetrician. Founded a wellness centre here in London, but is also part of an extraordinary Christian family of heritage that's made a huge impact upon the Christian life of Nigeria, and Gubby now is, I think it's fair to say, is exploring how that's going to look for her life, as well as all the other things that she holds in her hands. She's a lady who's also managed to spin so many plates. She's released as one of our leaders in the Bethel Sozo ministry. I don't know, her capacity is extraordinary. I remember seeing Gubby sort of slightly zonked out at one Joy weekend a few years ago, and we discovered that she'd been called in for an emergency delivery of a baby at 3 a.m. at a London hospital, and still made it up to Joy weekend the following day, and was there sort of slightly phased. But such is her passion to see the goodness of heaven open over our lives. And so it is a huge privilege to have you here today. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to the word, and may the Spirit of God be powerfully speaking through you as you give your message for us today. Let's welcome Gubby to this morning.
Thank you. Bless you. Good morning, everybody. And to all the mothers out there today, and to those who have mothers, which is everybody, we're completely inclusive today. We just honor you today for all you do. And so thank you, Andy, for inviting me. And I feel really privileged to be speaking to you today. It's quite poignant that the last time I was standing on this stage was about 7 years ago. And that was at a private commendation service for my mother, who had just passed away. And on that day, I was honoring her in that service before we took her back to Nigeria for her burial. So, I think Andy said a bit about me, but depending on the setting, I am a wife 34 years into the marriage with my husband, Chris, over there. I'm a mother of 3 young adults, and I dare not mention them in the talk today because they'll get very embarrassed, so I'll honor that for them. I'm a daughter of 2 amazing parents, both no longer with us. I'm an obstetrician gynaecologist. I'm a medical leader, and I do NHS management. I founded this private center. I'm a Sozo First Chair both here and in Nigeria. I'm on the PCC at HTB. I'm on a board of governors in an education, etc., etc. Now, the reason I say that is when people ask me what I do, it depends on what setting I am. And then I'll say, which hat am I putting on? But where I want to start off with, if you asked me today what I desire and what I aspire to be known as, in all my settings, wherever I am, that I am indeed royalty, that I am daughter of the Most High King, that I want to reign in all aspects of my life, that I want to bring kingdom to bear in everything I do. So that is my desire, and that is my aspiration, that I am not compartmentalizing everything. So what I'd like to share with you today is the journey to get me to have that as my number one aspiration and objective. So where does this journey start? It actually starts with a mother. And it is my mother. So my mother was phenomenal. She came to the Lord in her mid-40s. So this isn't something, before that, you know, the whole family were very lukewarm Christians. We did what we did, went to church on Sunday and, you know, weddings and all the rest of that. But she came to know the Lord in her mid-40s, at a time where, although she was a midwife by background, she was now really no longer working. She was supporting my father, who was an elder statesman, described sometimes as a quintessential public servant. He had a very successful governmental life. He had a very successful corporate life. He was a benefactor, and she was the powerhouse behind him. And what she did from this, and I've just put it in inverted commas, housewife perspective, is that she built a ministry. She started off with coffee mornings, Bible studies, and then linked up with international ministries. It grew. She brought speakers in. She networked. She got people to do amazing things for her for nothing. You know, that's how persuasive she was. She was a prayer warrior. She was an intercessor. In fact, all of us in our family didn't have to do anything because we knew we had this covering. So, of course, if it was an exam or if it was a job, oh, Mommy, could you pray for me? You know, and then we'd go off and do what we needed to do. But she was amazing. And for those years, I used to hear about her ministry going from strength to strength. This was a ministry about women connecting with each other, connecting with the community, and connecting with God. So what she really believed that was that women right at the center, a bit like Jesus, and women right at the center, and you can influence children, you can influence partners, you can influence and contribute to your community in whatever aspect of life we had. And I used to hear all these amazing things she did. But of course, I was here in the UK, I was in school, and then I was at university and medical school, and I was living my life, and I was gaining my goals, and I was doing all of this. And for all those years, she pursued me. She prayed and prayed. She tried to pray me in. She'd come, and anytime she'd say things like, oh, Gubby, let's have, I need to talk to you. I thought, oh, God, here we go again, salvation talk. I can't tell you how many times I actually did the salvation prayer, because sometimes it's just easier to say, I accept, and then go on, rather than have, what are you doing with your life? Where is God? You know, and then she knew she wasn't being effective, but she was so passionate about me coming to know the Lord. And then she'd send people. I've got a whole library of books that have been sent to me the whole day. It's books about too busy to pray, how to know God in 2 minutes, 101, literally everything. So all of them, and when I look now, it's Happy Birthday, Merry Christmas, 1990, Merry Christmas, 1991. Books about everything. We would be in settings. We'd go out for a Chinese meal. There'd be somebody there. She got doctors to speak to me. She got government, anything. And I was so nimble. You know the song we were singing about, wherever you're running to, you'll be pursued? It was like that. But I actually developed such sophisticated method of sniffing out someone that was coming to evangelize to me. I would see them. I would be in a setting. I go, this this looks like one of those that after lunch we're going to have it. I'd look for my exit strategy. I'd be on call. My pager would go off. So this was line. But I thought, she's amazing. She's doing all of those things. Bless him. So what happened? One day, the Lord physically stopped me. And when I say that, it was, I was getting pain in this arm, and I thought, I'd done a forceps delivery or something, and that was the cause of it. And then I went to bed, woke up in the morning, and suddenly I couldn't move. I was getting shooting pains down this on my right arm. I had slipped a disc in C6, C7. It was excruciating, and in a fell moment, almost like one of those, I mean, it was such a significant time, and I almost heard the Lord, and of course, at that time, I wasn't hearing anything, say, okay, well, why don't you get up and go? Suddenly, go to work, go do your thing. I could not move. It was almost a career-ending injury. I couldn't even have people come close to me because when they spoke, they moved the air near me, and that made my neck work. So I'd be propped with my cushions. I'm very right-hand dominant. I'm not at all ambidextrous. So I couldn't even do emails or anything with my left hand. So I was like this for weeks, and nothing could happen. And then, Mina here, Mina Bajamo, who was actually, although I was at school with her, we weren't really that close, but she was one of my mother's spiritual daughters. My mother had so many, because she needed one for every opportunity, which, who should I send there, And Mina arrived at home and to see me, and of course I couldn't move, so my exit strategy in terms was that, which, the Lord says it's all about free choice. I had no choice. I was stuck in a chair, and I knew something was up because she came in with a CD player and a box of tissues, and that's the clue. If anybody comes with a box of tissues, you're in trouble. And so on that day, with a box of tissues, which we both used, I gave my life to the Lord. And it was such a freedom. But the thing that the Lord does is he lines everything up. And at that point in time, my mother, who lives in Nigeria, but they had a house here, they were here quite a lot, now had to have a prolonged time in London because she'd been recently diagnosed with cancer of the colon. And so she needed to have whole courses of chemotherapy. And they had just moved, or they were moving into a bespoke flat which was being done to their bed. And of course, with all works, it was delayed. So they were living with us for the first time because they'd sold their house at this point in time. And of course, after the Mina day, which, and the box of tissues day, my mother, of course, was there. So she used to have Bible studies, which she's done all her life in our house. And of course, if you've now really, truly been saved with the box of tissues and all, you have to attend those Bible studies. So I'd like to say from that moment, everything was fine. But you can't. It was still, I'd go there, and my mother would be there with her friends, and I'd still be quite argumentative, sort of intellectually superior. I'd try and catch them out. Oh, you said that, but that's not that, And I was doing all of this. And what actually brought me around, it was their patience and their love and the way they must have just looked at me like, oh dear, well, she'll get it. But I was there still fighting, coming in to this relationship. So let me fast forward. My mother then went into remission. Life was good. I would read the Bible occasionally. I was, it was great. She was pleased. And in one of those moments when she felt she was completely healed, she sort of confided in me. And it was really, I believe, to encourage me. And she said, if I had to have had cancer, and I had to have gone through chemotherapy, that you could come and know the Lord. It was worth it. So, and I remember that stayed with me. Fast forward a little bit, she wasn't healed. The cancer came back. It was ravaging, and she died. So there I was left, and the impact on this for me was trauma. I mean, I was utterly traumatized, really, because it rung with me that all those years that she had been pursuing me, had I been a good daughter, had I gone to me, had I sort of given my life, then the Lord wouldn't have had to use such an extreme measure to get me to the page. So this was it. So I then thought after that, a year of my life, I have no knowledge of. I worked, I led a service, I was a leader, I delivered babies, but I have no real recollection of that year. And so, but then I started, and I was going to conferences, I was going to Bible study, I was doing all of this, and it was great, and I was getting closer to God. And then I had my sozo, which was, you know, my sozo, and it was life-changing, because in the sozo, I got to the roots of where my sense of performance, the need to strive, the need to, you know, be the best came from. And also from that release in that first sozo, I got a chance to explore that why was I trying so hard? And it was that I was trying so hard to be as good a Christian as I could, to be the best born-again Christian, because I wanted my mother, where she was, to say, it was worth it. Look how well you're doing. But you know what the sozo said to me? Is like, oh, my dear, you've got it completely wrong. It is not about her. All she was doing is trying to point you to him. And so by trying to please her, I still didn't get it. I still didn't get that it wasn't about her. I took to sozo like a duck to water. I got on team. And one of the things that you do when you're a sozo chair is that you learn to self-sozo. And so the next thing that happened was, I mean, again, I was trying my best, which is what I was trying my best. And the Lord speaks to me just as I wake up. You know, the alarm bell goes and you're about to get up and something drops into my mind. And it's the same when I'm falling asleep. And I sort of figured that the Lord has said, I can't get your attention anytime during the day. I can't, you know, you're either always talking or someone's talking to you. You know, someone, in fact, one of my trainees once asked me and said, oh, Gubby, can I have a word with you? I said, yeah, walk and talk, walk and talk. I'm going to another meeting. And she said, you're busier than the Prime Minister. What's going on? And you see, but because of my life, I took that as a badge of honor. Oh my goodness, I'm like as busy, not as the current Prime Minister, she's very busy, but you know, with Brexit. But it was like, you know, so that's the life I was living. So I suddenly started paying attention to whatever dropped in my mind when I was between that wake-sleep time. And the Lord wasn't doing dreams for me, because I would never remember, or I'd leap up and I'd forget. So I got that. And this is the picture I got. And it was of a kindergarten. And there were probably children of about age 5, and they were all sitting in a circle playing. And I thought, okay, what's this all about? So, Lord, what are you saying? And then there was the teacher, and there was a little girl standing outside the circle holding onto the teacher's hand. And I said, who is this little girl? And the Lord said, it's you. And I was thinking, like, I've never been outside a circle in my life. I'm always, you know. And I was saying, like, that's not me. And he was going, it's you. And I was going, so what's that about? And then he took me to the parable of the workers. And, you know, I'll just paraphrase that. So, the work owner or the vineyard owner goes out at the crack of dawn to hello? Oh, yeah. To get people to work on in the vineyard or the farm or wherever. And he says, I'll pay you 1 denarius for it. And then he goes out again at 9, finds some more people. Then he goes out at noon. Then he goes out at 3 p.m. And each time he brings people in and he offers them the same amount. And then the last time he goes out, it's at 5. And, he offers them the single denarius to come in. And then at the end, when he's paying, the people who'd been there all day, of course, you all know the story, were sort of like, hang on, we've been here all day. Why are we getting the same amount as the person who's just come? And it's not fair. And of course, the owner says, is it my money? Did I not agree one with you? Can I not spend my money as I want? Have I cheated you? And I sort of thought, so this had a really strong impact on me for 2 things. Because what the Lord revealed to me is that although I was following this life, I was very intimidated in Christian circles. I was intimidated because I had joined late. I was intimidated because I didn't know the Bible very well. I was intimidated because I'd be sitting with people and they go, oh, I just see Hosea 4:3 on you. And I'm thinking like, where is that? And they'd say, oh, Micah, what, and and I thought I'd never get that. So isn't God amazing that he would use a Bible passage for someone who had issues with not knowing the Bible to explain to me that you are welcome. It doesn't matter if you came late. It doesn't matter when you came, that you are welcome, and I honor you and I value you in exactly the same way. This was a completely mind shift for me, for something that I didn't even know was an issue for me. So it meant then that there was such a freedom with not comparing, and to say that, it's okay. You just go, stay in your own lane. Never mind about other people's lane. So I'm thinking, gosh, I've got this whole Christianity thing, the pressures of, so on and on I'm going, and I'm thinking, this is great. And then the next pivotal thing that happened is I'm being promoted at work. It's like supernatural promotion. I'm chair of this and chair of that. And I'm still managing to go on lapis lazuli conferences. And I'm doing all of this. This is great. I can do Christianity. And the Lord is putting me in this position because he wants my voice to be heard. He wants me to influence in the marketplace. Blah, 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 blah. So I've told myself the story and I'm thinking, this is great. But with blessings comes battles. And so coming back from an amazing Lapis conference in Nigeria, where I actually prayed for someone and blind eyes opened, which sort of, even to this day, I still don't believe it happened, but there was someone there who witnessed it. So I came back on this spiritual high that, Lord, I will serve you forever. But I came back into just the worst work environment I could ever have come into. All sorts of things were kicking off. That group were going mental. I'd go to the meeting. I'd encourage, I'd sort out, I'd reconcile, and you'd go down to it, and there'd be nothing. It's like a bushfire, and you'd look at the bottom, and what is at the root? Nothing. And then you think, God, that's odd. Something else would pop up. And it's like one of those children's toys where you bang one, then that pops up, and you bang one, and that pops up. And each time, when I was talking to the executive team, they go, what's going on, Gubby? What's going on? I didn't know what was going on. I've always been in control. But suddenly, and then there was mutterings about how, so it came to your leadership. How can all these different things be happening? There must be something at the root of it. And I was mortified. And I was sort of, having always been in control, it was like, what is this about? And then the Lord said to me, lay it down. And I was going, lay what down? I knew exactly what it meant, but you know how you have to pretend like it can't possibly mean the job, you know. So it was laid down, and he said, resign. Now, I spoke to my accountability prayer partner, I spoke to my sister, and anybody I knew that was that had encouraged me would pray with me, and everybody was saying, this is the work of the enemy, you know, we're going to come against it, we're going to find the ringleaders. I knew who the ringleaders were. We're going to, well, not quite bind, but let's prayerfully address this. And for me, because all my life I'm used to conflict, I can deal with it. So it's not something that but because I had this instruction, drop it, and which meant resign from my managerial role. And so I did, and I did without going back to the people who were praying for me, because I felt my accountability was to what I was hearing, not to people encouraging me, saying, we'll get you through this. And then I resigned. So it caused quite a ripple. Nobody saw it coming. It was like, oh, but we were dealing with this. You didn't need to resign. And then I had what I would call my duvet period, which is, you know, when you go under a duvet and you cover your head, it's just so awful. So it lasted for weeks. In fact, quite a bit more than weeks. And I was just wrestling with it. I felt like there was a bereavement. It felt like I had lost, like, my right arm. And so I was thinking, what is this about? And I was so mad with God, because I was going, well, what was the point of supernaturally promoting me? What was the point of me working and being divisional medical director across 2 sites in record time? What was the point if I was going to drop it all? So I really had this time of just asking and asking, what is going on? And then, you know, what came through was, it was like, why are you so agitated about all of this? And this is because it was about my identity. My identity had now become my job. So I was in bondage to it. Of course, I dressed it up differently. It was all about, oh, but I'm doing a good job, and I'm adding value, and I'm giving of my time, and, you know, I'm doing emails at 3 in the morning. Who else would do that? So, but it had become my identity. So when I had to cut it off, I suddenly thought, who am I? And I remember there was, during my duvet seasons, a time I was speaking to Chris, and I said, well, I guess I will have to return to being an ordinary consultant obstetrician gynecologist rather than all the 10 million other things I did. And I remember him saying to me, he goes, there is nothing ordinary about you. And for me, it was the most romantic thing he had said to me in 32 years, you know, because it absolutely got me there, and it ministered to my loss and my who am I and what am I, and I've got it all wrong. I thought I was doing a good job. I thought it was a job you wanted me to do. So there was all this loss of identity during this period. But I came out through it. And, you know, when I sort of look back now, sorry, let me just reverse a bit, rewind a bit. So what I learned is that I spent a lot of time with the Lord during that time, because when a big part of your job has been taken away, it took a few months for them to sort me out to where did I want to go, what clinics did I want to do. So I had an incredible amount of time opened up, which I spent in my inner room and started to listen and started to be ministered to by the Lord, starting to read my Bible, starting to hear, starting to understand. Because what I realize now is I was being taught by the Holy Spirit in that time. And so when I look back, you know, I'm talking about this journey. There's some other key milestones, but because the stories involve other people, I can't do that. But when I look back, it takes me then to the parable of the sower. And you know the parable is about how the sower scatters the seeds. And they're into 4 different bits of soil. And how one is onto the path, I'll paraphrase again, so please don't theologically hold me, but I'll paraphrase. So one is into the pathway where, of course, there's no soil there. I suppose it's like the concrete. And the birds just pick it up, and that's it. And then you've got the rocky soil, which, of course, there's a little bit of soil, so it starts to grow a bit, but it's superficial, and it has no depth. And then you've got the proper soil, but there are weeds there, and it grows up, but then the weeds come and choke it. And then you've got the good soil, where you get the roots, where it grows, and where it can yield grain 30, 60, 100-fold. And often when I've heard that story, I've often heard it about there are some people who do this and some people who do that and some people who hear. That's how it's been explained. But for me, when I look at my journey, it's been very similar to me being at different places because I have always heard the word. You know, I've always been surrounded by it, but it's where I have been personally has been on the path. So, you know, you can say it all, I can put the face on and pretend to listen, the birds can come take it. And there are other times where, a song has moved me, a book has moved me, and I start, but it's all very superficial. And then very soon it just fails. And then there have been times when I've done the Bible study, I've been a connect group, home group leader, I've done all these things. It's been really solid, and I was going, this is it, Lord, I'm where I want to be. But then life has come and just choked it, okay? And so for me, for this season, which is why I can have that aspiration I told you, it's about the good soul time. It's about times where I'm hearing truths. I've always heard truths, but then I hear the truth. And even though I've never heard it before, I sort of kind of know it. So I will hear somebody say something, and I was going, that's an amazing take, but it's familiar. It's like I've always known it because it just sinks in. It just sinks in. So I'm getting Rhema words. I'm understanding kingdom values and kingdom principles. Again, not necessarily because I'm being taught, but because I am being taught, but I'm being taught by the Holy Spirit. And that's why I can say that is where I am now. On Saturday, I'm doing this School of Spirit Life, which has been held here, which is every Saturday, and I will just say it is the inaugural course. Anybody here, if any of this is hitting a thing, you need to book onto the next course because it's all about everything that I'm talking about. It's about that spirit-to-spirit connection. And last Saturday, we had a guest speaker who, 2 guest speakers actually, husband and wife. And I got a prophetic word from John, the husband. And he went to, again, the parable, if it's a parable, of the vine, you know, and the branches, and about how if you have branches that are not bearing fruit, it's cut off. And then he said that's how he saw me, and that also the branches that bear fruit, God, who is the gardener, will prune. And that word just went, you know, straight in, because I feel that I am cutting off the things that aren't bearing fruit. But also I feel as if I'm being pruned. And I'm not a gardener, but pruning I don't think is fun. You know, I don't think you sort of, oh, I'm blossoming because I've been pruned. It's like, it's a bit painful when you've been pruned. But it's all about what's to come. So for me, and then as if that, you know, like how the Lord always confirms, I then got on my Bible app a couple of days later, verse of the day, the same, John 15, about pruning and the vine. And then I got, where was it? Then I decided to do, with the Bible app, you can do these, what do they call them? Like short devotionals. So I'm picking one, and it's 7 days. You can see that there's still some bits of me that I need to deal with. You see one, and it's like, 26 days. No, I'll do the 7 days one. I've got a better chance. And I'm doing it, and day one, it's all about the vine and and this is out of about 6 I could have picked. So I said, okay, I get it. I'm being pruned because I need to bear fruit. But it struck me that both those two stories, the soil being 100-fold and giving grain, and being pruned so that you will be fruitful, are just two arms of the same story about what you can do and what can happen to you when the word, which is the seed, falls on good soil, and when, as with the vine, you are connected as a branch to Jesus. So I'm just sort of coming into land, and that's about where I am now. I look back to where I started, which is that this story it started with a mother, my mother, and I remember during my nimble days when I was evading and when I was running, not knowing that there's no mountain the Lord wouldn't climb or door he wouldn't kick down to get to me, But it was in one of those days, and I was getting one of those, you would, if you gave your life, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I remember saying to her then, that it's not fair. I said, I work so hard, I'm a good person, I'm not selfish, I've got kids, I'm doing the best I can, what is with this pressure, I've met some really mean Christians who are definitely not reflecting Jesus, so, what's your point? And I remember both her words and the way she gave it. And there was such a sense of love when she said, my darling, that salvation is not from works. It's by grace. And I didn't understand the words, but I understood the way it was delivered, that was an important faith. So today, if I may be so bold, I just say to all of you, male and female, I call you my darlings because he does, that it is not by works, but that it is by grace. And I would just like to add, because it is Mothering Sunday, to all the mothers out there who are multitasking, awesome, never tiring, amazing women. We so honor you today. But to be the best mothers you can be, you first need to learn to be the daughter of a good, good, good father. Thank you.